If you're watching this, then you've probably seen me on YouTube or Twitch and wondered, who are you? What do you know? Who do you think you are? And while I'm still figuring that out myself, not that I have the most interesting story in the world, but for me, things really unfolded in a kind of unexpected way. And I'd like to tell you my story. Coming up. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. I grew up in Palmetto Bay in the suburbs. Nothing super spectacular about my upbringing, but my dad played guitar and has always been a connoisseur of music. Among the sounds I regularly heard around the house growing up was Genesis, Kansas, Steely Dan, Chick Corea, Sting, Allman Brothers Band, Pat Metheny Group, and many others. You're probably wondering what's the correlation between all these, and I think for the most part, all the artists I just listed err on the side of harmonic complexity to some degree, or they're very compositional. It could all be seen as music for musicians. I soaked this music up as a kid, and a lot of it has nostalgic value to me. But on top of that, I think it also trained my ear. We'll come back to that. So at one point when I was in middle school, everybody in my family was learning an instrument. My brother Jerry learned guitar, and my other brother Greg also learned guitar and even sang a little. My cousin was learning bass, and to complete the family band, I started thinking it would be cool if I could learn drums. I begged my parents for a drum set. When they said no, like any sensible parent would, I bought some drumsticks and played on circles that I drew in the carpet, or just about any other surface I could use to live out my fantasy. After a few months of this, my parents finally caved and bought me a Roland V-drum set, which I could play using headphones. And when I tell you I played that thing non-stop, you better believe those drums never saw a moment's rest. I was able to pick up a lot of the music I'd heard growing up after a few tries, despite never having taken drum lessons. To this day, I don't think I've ever had a drum lesson. The family band I mentioned before didn't really pan out, but I had without doubt discovered a new passion. I came home from school every day and took out my preteen angst on those rubber circles. After a year or two of playing with recordings, I decided that wasn't enough. I wanted to play with other people. I had a hard time finding people my age who were interested in forming a band or anything like that, so I joined my middle school jazz band. As it turns out, Southwood Middle School just happened to be a magnet school, meaning performing arts students from all over the city would flock there just to be a part of the school's robust arts program. The jazz band was led by Milena Kaye, the sister of saxophonist Ed Kaye, and the students in the band were some of the best in town. It really made for a wonderful experience. At some point in the middle of all this, I started messing with piano. With all that unintentional ear training I'd received as a kid, I was able to pick out melodies and chords pretty easily. So when I got to my high school jazz band and realized that I had perfect pitch, and this is not something everybody has, I found myself doing double duty in the band as a drummer and pianist, rotating out with the other students. At this point, I started taking piano lessons at a local music school. My teacher got me off on the right foot, learning 2-5-1s, but I would eventually outgrow this teacher, and I found another guy named Ryan Ellis, who led the jazz band at another high school, and from whom I learned a lot about jazz piano. But perhaps the pivotal moment for me when I realized I wanted to be a musician was my time at the Frost School of Music summer camp, under the wing of jazz legend and multi-instrumentalist Ira Sullivan. I actually auditioned as a drummer, but ended up playing piano for most of the duration. This was my first time connecting with students my age who were really passionate about jazz. And between that and the deep wisdom generously offered by Ira Sullivan, it was an experience that I cherish to this day. Soon after this, I realized I wanted to be a musician, and I wanted to live my life being excited to go to work, and just accept whatever else came with it. In 2011, I enrolled at University of North Florida, studying under pianist Lynn Ariel. Lynn is not only a great pianist, but a fantastic educator who really pushed her students to their maximum. She gave me the building blocks of improvisation, but also had much to offer in the way of artistry and the finer nuances of playing this music. I owe much of my success to her. She suggested that I enter the 2014 Jacksonville Jazz Piano Competition, an international competition open to all ages in which I ended up winning third place. In 2015, I graduated from University of North Florida and immediately moved to New York, where I pursued a master's degree at NYU. There, I was able to study under a whole host of living legends. Under Don Friedman, I really sharpened my understanding of the bebop language. Under both Alan Broadbent and Gil Goldstein, I gained a deeper understanding of arranging and composition, as well as how those relate to piano playing. Ari Honig is easily one of the best teachers I've had. The rhythm training he gave me to this day is one of the most valuable learning experiences I've had. And this goes not only for crazy polyrhythms and odd groupings, but for even understanding basic rhythms like triplets, which even a lot of professional musicians lack. He also taught me a lot about musicality, phrasing, communication. Just a lot of basic skills that every musician ought to have, but there's not necessarily a curriculum on that. Outside of NYU, I also studied under Taylor Eichste, who taught me even more about composition, but most importantly, fixed my technique. You see, while at UNF, I had multiple experiences where I overplayed or overexerted, and I had tendonitis issues in my right arm. This proved to be a great learning experience for me, firstly because while my right arm was out of commission, I spent some time working on bass lines and left-hand stuff. Secondly, it forced me to really re-examine my technique. See, I never had proper classical training growing up, and most of the piano lessons I'd had prior to music school were more focused on learning voicings and vocabulary than technique. My technique had improved during my time at UNF, but Taylor was able to point out everything I was doing incorrectly and show me how to play efficiently and avoid fatigue, even playing the way he does. In December 2016, I recorded an album with Linda O, Joel Ross, Dan Dickinson, Samir Zarif, and Ulysses Owens Jr., who also produced the album. This recording would later be known as First Impressions, which I released in September 2017. After my time at NYU, I was immediately offered an amazing opportunity to be the music director for a brand new musical called Lights Out, Nat King Cole, starring Dule Hill as Nat and Daniel J. Watts as Sammy Davis Jr. The show, written by Patricia McGregor and Coleman Domingo, didn't just go for the obvious jukebox musical, but rather explored a specific period in Nat's life when he had his own TV show. And his success never fully came to fruition because of systematic racism. The show went on to play at the Geffen Theater in Los Angeles, a production which I wasn't a part of, but it is still an experience that I cherished and that I learned a lot from as a band leader and communicator. Now, you're probably thinking by now things are going great for me, which they were. But at this point in the story is where the cold, hard reality of being a musician sets in. At this point, I'd been in New York for just over 2 years and had some gigging opportunities, but most of them had been through the school in some way. In January 2018, as I experienced my first slow season as a gigging musician, I came to the bitter realization that as a post-grad at a music school, I was on my own, unemployed, and with no gigs. I was in the same boat as virtually every post-grad musician in New York. So I did what all musicians new on the scene would do. I would hang hard, go to jam sessions, staying out late, and doing whatever I could just to get noticed, and scraping together enough $50 gigs to try and make rent. In 2019, I started my YouTube channel with the hopes of gaining some kind of online following while also offering educational content. The channel saw a ton of growth following the Lyle May series in May 2020, at which point I started to see a future for myself as a content creator. In July 2020, I began live streaming, first on Facebook, then ultimately moving to Twitch, where I had by far the most success out of any platform. I found a format that worked for me, using logic loops to create flexible backing tracks for me that could loop any section indefinitely, and allow me to cue sections whenever I wanted using Logic Remote on my iPad. I put together a comprehensive list of all the tunes I know, gradually adding to it and creating more backing tracks as I went. At this point, a year into streaming on Twitch, I've created over 200 backing tracks. I've done theme streams covering the music of Chick Corea Electric Band, Stevie Wonder, Joe Satriani, Steely Dan, Bill Evans, Mulgrew Miller, Thelonious Monk, George Gershwin, Cole Porter, video game music, and many, many more. I am eternally grateful for the community I've found on Twitch. If you're watching this from Twitch, you're awesome. Shout out to the Slack Club. But if you're just watching this from YouTube, you're awesome too. I appreciate every single one of you who click on my videos, who leave comments, who like and subscribe, and who support me in whatever way that you do. And now I should probably wrap this thing up with some kind of salient point about my life story, and I'm not sure that there is one, other than the fact that I didn't just get to where I am today because I worked hard. I mean, I did, but there's more to it than that. I got to this point because I had people in my life who believed in me. My family believed in me and supported me every step of the way. My teachers throughout grade school and college all saw potential in me that I didn't realize was there. And I felt almost a sense of duty to explore this potential, see the journey through, and just become the best possible musician I could be. 10 years ago, I never imagined myself living in New York, having a master's in music from NYU, or having a YouTube or Twitch channel. It's been quite a journey for me so far, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for me. That's all for now. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to click on this video and hear what I have to say. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, ring the bell, consider joining the Discord if you want to join our community. Hope to catch you on a Twitch stream soon or in the YouTube comment section, whatever you do. But until then, happy practicing.